We'll be live in a second. Second banana heaven. All right. Okay. Holla if you hear me, to quote the great Scott Steiner. Can anyone hear us?
Is that a wrestler?
Can you hear Sean? Oh yeah, Scott Steiner is a very interesting wrestler. One of the best promo guys ever. So
I had a feeling he had to be, man.
Holla if you hear me. The big bad booty daddy.
The big bad booty daddy?
That's what he called himself. I would never make that up. That's what he called himself. Okay. All right, good.
No,
they can hear us.
Okay, excellent.
So, to begin at the beginning, we just finished watching the vice presidential debate for 2020. It was intensively boring.
In many ways, yeah.
Yeah, so my sort of basic breakdown of the debate would be this. You had one candidate in Mike Pence who was boring and used a lot of talking points, a lot of platitudes. Pretty uninteresting. Kamala Harris, boring, used a lot of platitudes, and was more condescending. Well, more condescending than boring. That was the word that came to mind when I was trying to characterize her performance. Both candidates were very evasive. Pence refused to answer the question on what would happen if he had to take over from Trump. Kamala was similarly evasive on the same question regarding Biden. And another dodge that Pence got away with, which was surprising, is he was asked what they would replace Obamacare with, and he just started talking about the Supreme Court and accusing her of court packing. And they never pressed on the issue of, well, what is your replacement for the ACA? Those were the major dodges that I noticed, and I feel like anytime candidates dodge questions in that way, they're doing a major disservice to the public, and it defeats the point of using debates as a way to inform the public. But, so Sean, you were talking about your sort of general takeaway when the computer decided to betray us earlier. So what would your general takeaway of this debate be?
Well, remember, the old saying in IT is the problem with the computer lies somewhere between the chair and the monitor.
Yeah, that and
God, that's an asshole statement, man. I went to a computer repair shop and they had it on the wall, and I was like, okay, you guys just announced to me that you are assholes. It's kind of fun.
Well, if you don't study computers as much as we do, how do you even use it? I mean, how do you spend your day without knowing how many, what your gigahertz rating is on your processor? What's wrong with you? Like, I obsessively upgrade every component in my computer every week. I don't know how people use computers that are more than a month old.
That is an awful voice, sir. That is an awful. It works.
If you called an IT person and got that voice, you would totally believe it. You would never think that I'm just doing a voice.
No, I wouldn't. I would believe if they're from India or Pakistan. That's what I would believe.
Really? That doesn't sound like India or Pakistan. I was going for like.
That's my point. It's not. Well, I guess you're going for like, 80s or 90s IT nerd, right?
Oh yeah.
Like up or something. I just mean nowadays. When you call up, it's like it's a guy from India who tells you, "Have you restarted your computer?" Even though you told me you already did, but then they say it anyway. But anyway, this is the first time I watched a presidential debate almost all the way through. I mean, a vice presidential debate because, these two people. I mean, if Biden wins, we all know Harris is going to be president, and Pence is very obviously setting himself up for a serious run in 48 years. Yeah. So this was one I actually did want to see them in action. I've always seen clips of vice presidential debates. I mostly agree with you. There was a lot of evasion, although I think Pence was a bit more evasive. They both did their platitudes and slogans, if you will. I feel like Harris did them maybe a little more, or a little more cheaply, which is something worth pointing out. They would, on time, land some decent blows against each other. So it's hard for me to really get the feeling think that any one side had won in particular. I might give a slight edge to Pence because he was a little more poised, if you will. But that's also kind of his shoes is cool, really. You could tell, though, underneath them keeping things together, you could tell that these two really don't like each other. Like they were. I felt like there were some clenched jaws there at times,
I didn't really get a strong sense of personal animosity. I just got a sense of this might be the first or second time they've ever met.
No, they've been on the Senate. They've been in the Senate together. I want to say no, they haven't because Pence was the vice president. But from what I've read, they actually have a personal distaste for each other, not just like we're in opposing parties.
Oh.
But neither one of them is known for looking like neither one of them does the Trump routine, right. Where you're going to make like snarling attacks or whatnot. But there were moments there where I was like, okay, I can tell you're trying to go for the throat here. Although, Danny texted me a bit and he said that he thought that Harris won because Pence, Harris won by a nose because he said that Pence didn't go in the attack as often as effectively as he could, except for a few moments here and there. Mostly when it came down to the race issues, when Pence was talking about Trump has a Jewish son-in-law, and hey, when you were a prosecutor, you didn't do anything about criminal justice reform because that really is one of the weak spots to hit her on. I was actually telling my friend that I was like, I don't think you can really hit Harris from the left, I'm from the right, but you can hit her from the left on issues. And she's very vulnerable there, as Tulsi Gabbard showed last year. So those are just a few first takeaways I had. Well, what'd you think?
Well, one of the things I found most interesting, and I was texting with my friend Paul about it, and I also had a good laugh with Tina earlier. Did you see the fly that landed on Mike Pence for a solid 2 minutes?
No, when did that happen?
So there was a fly, I believe it was around 10:17. So it was about that time. It landed on his head, and at first we thought it had died in his hair. But it stayed there for a solid 2 or 3 minutes. And what I found funny is I remember there was a clip of Obama that Alex Jones used to play where a fly landed on his forehead and stayed there. He said, "That's proof of his devilry right there. That's the sulfuric devilry that attracts flies. That's what Satan and Beelzebub have happened to him." But
that is in horror movies, yeah.
But the thing is, of course, Alex Jones, when it comes to Republicans, becomes a basic bitch partisan, so he will never say that about Mike Pence. So I had to say it for him.
Yeah. No, it's I was thinking it's like Harris didn't do so well in the primary debates, but once again, easier to hit her from the left than the right for sure.
Yeah.
But she did have her stumbling moments. I think Pence's worst was probably environment and not really answering the question about about accepting the results of the election, from what I could see.
Yes.
Yeah. I'd say for Harris, it was when the identity politics was trotted out, because it kind of went into like sloganeering there, and Pence was able to fairly easily deflect it, I felt. I mean, not for the people who are like 100% sold on the slogans, but for the rest of us, I was kind of like, this really didn't work, And there was something else that I thought Pence wasn't so bad on. I'll check my notes here, which by notes, I mean just shit I texted my brother,
Yeah, I mean, I have some notes. The only thing I could find that was effective for Pence in terms of defending the weaknesses of the Trump administration is that he did point out Russiagate, something that obviously Harris didn't want to talk about too much because it's embarrassing.
Yes, that's the one. That's the one.
That was pretty good. And he also said, in response to the "what will you do when Trump doesn't accept the election results," he said, well, Hillary Clinton said that Biden should not concede. And yes, that is a whataboutism, but in this case, it was relevant. Although, as you said, he did dodge the question as presented.
Yeah, that's interesting to mention that, though. Yeah, the foreign policy one was also one where I thought Harris was weak. You know, I feel like she was probably better on the environment stuff for sure.
Yeah, she won that exchange easily. Not Biden, Pence, excuse me. Effectively, when he was talking about how good they are on climate change, he kept talking about how great fracking is. So, if you were just listening casually, it would be easy to come up with the impression that fracking is the answer to climate change.
Hey, 1 second. Some alarm went off here.
Alright. Yeah. Machines, man. Fuck machines. Terminator was a documentary. The machines are out to get us. They are not our friends.
Oh, that was just an emergency thing because they're like, that hurricane's coming around, but it's not coming to Louisiana. It's going to be Texas.
Okay.
That's okay. That's not 100%, but that's like how it's looking, so whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, I get you.
That had to be the most annoying alarm I ever heard from the National Weather Service. But anyway.
That sounds pretty standard to me. I've heard that one before.
Well, mine's on vibrate. My friend, theirs just kind of like went, like it was a fucking alarm, like man the torpedoes, full speed ahead, right? Yeah. Anyway, there was the foreign policy one was one of the ones that seemed where she was a bit on the weaker side. I did sometimes get the feeling that Harris wanted Trump there instead of Pence, Yeah. And there's a bit of that from Pence as well, too, where it's almost like they feel like I'd rather be arguing with the other person than you sometimes, which maybe that's par for the course in VP debates. But I will make a confession. Towards the end, I did, maybe the last 5 or 10 minutes, I did stop listening because I just gotten so tired of it. And I don't know, I just started watching Mad Max 2 clips.
I do have to say, the part that you missed might have been Pence's best part in some ways. Once again, there wasn't a hell of a lot of substance, but he seemed a little more on point than Harris in that last 5 to 10. They were asked some question from a kid in Utah about civility, basically. So, a kid who can write eloquently, but just repeats stuff they've heard on the news or they've heard some adult moan the state of incivility. Anyway, Pence had a better answer on that about how we come together after elections and how Ginsburg and Scalia used to be friends, blah, blah, blah. Harris didn't really have an answer. She just said, well, I hear you, and I'm so excited that young people are engaged. Anyway, Joe Biden's a really great guy with a lot of character.
I didn't hear that part from Harris. I heard that part from Pence, and then I was like, I'm just done. I want to listen to the Lord Humongous.
Yeah, that last part was pretty boring, and it's kind of, civility questions are inherently brain neutral.
Brain neutral.
But one thing I noticed about Pence's strategy is I think he was trying to do something similar to what Trump was trying to do in terms of dominating the time, but he did it more subtly. So he just paced himself very slowly. And he kept using the phrase American people as many times as possible to identify their administration with the people, one. Yeah. And then space out his stuff as much as possible by having this unnecessary phrase repeated over and over and over. So that was their way of overrunning time without appearing to be uncivil or rude to the moderator. And it's actually somewhat clever, but it was also boring. And because his answers had such little substance, it became obnoxious.
It was, it got a little repetitive at a certain point. And to be fair, I feel like I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but I felt like towards the middle of the debate, he stopped using American people as much. He's like, okay, this phrase has been overused.
Yeah,
but for a moment there, I was like, oh, God.
Mr. Vice President, people are getting annoyed at this. Tone it down. Yeah, it was fairly... It was a boring debate. I didn't know for sure watching it whether I preferred the chaos of the last debate or this, but either way, it was pretty miserable.
I definitely prefer the chaos of the last debate. I mean, whenever we got these politicians talking about how they're here to serve us and it's about public service and about keeping democracy, and I'm always like, yeah, just quit lying. It's all horseshit. You're here for money and fame, and if you had your way, nobody would vote. In fact, if anything, you try to invalidate elections all the time. Hence why Harris is the VP pick. I mean, she was the person the Democratic Party wanted. The Democratic Party electorate didn't choose her, so now she's been forced upon you.
Yeah, and also she tried to defend her record as California AG, and that's exactly why she's on the ticket now, is because of who she did not prosecute. Steve Mnuchin, who is the current Secretary of the Treasury under Trump.
Exactly. I mean, it's and like they'd attack each other. Like Pence is like, Biden's been here, been in the Senate for 47 years and didn't do anything, or in Washington or whatever. I'm like, that's a great point to be made. Biden's record is crap. So is yours.
I mean, Mike Pence, just because we talk a lot about Trump, Biden, and others being pathological liars. I think everybody would agree. Whether you're talking about Trump, Pelosi, Biden, Schumer, or any of the other usual suspects, McConnell, a lot of them are pathological liars. That's fine and well. People forget about Mike Pence. This motherfucker, less than 20 years ago, went on the floor of the House of Representatives and said on national television that smoking cigarettes has not been proven to cause lung cancer.
That's a whopper.
So,
man, I don't mean that delicious Burger King hamburger either, okay?
Oh, I know. So, I mean, Pence is capable of saying literally anything in a calm manner with a straight face. So don't let him fool you just because he seems a little bit more adult than some of the psychos we have right now.
Yeah, it does allow him to be a fairly effective liar, I'll say. And I have always been impressed with his overall poise. It makes it, some people call him boring, but I don't know, like, how can I say this? Like, it's a bit dull, but I feel like his calmness is kind of like more genuine, I guess you would say. It's just a feeling I get, like, I don't know, he sells calm better than other people do in those positions, is all I mean. But it doesn't necessarily make him exciting.
No, and the whole thing is, I could imagine easily if, say, Pence had been governor of New York, he also, because of having a calm presentation while talking about his failures, he may have gotten all the little, like the stories when we were writing about sex dreams with Cuomo. That could have easily happened for Pence if he had been governor of New York, just because, like, oh, he's so calm. He may be an R, but he can give me the D. He.
Oh, God. That... Fuck, man.
I mean, there were people writing a little erotica stories about Cuomo early in the pandemic. Yes, that happened. Because I assume there were a lot of single women trapped in their apartments who were getting a little hard up.
Yeah, there's women... Well, I mean, they all love Justin Trudeau in Canada. Although, he's kind of like... He's the biggest joke of any leader of a major country, But anyway, so whatever. That's weird. I didn't know about that. Not surprised. Whatever, Harris could get frazzled at points, but overall,
excuse me, I'm talking.
Yeah, but overall. I mean, she held it together. She held it together for the most part and landed her fair amount of blows, I would say. Oh man! That's what I wanted to do. I gotta tell you something. Danny sent me. Okay, this is good. All right. So he's like, all right. So he's talking about them avoiding questions, and he said that. Pence avoided the question about peaceful transition of power, while Harris avoided the court packing question.
Mm-hmm.
So he said Pence avoided the late Roman Empire question.
Yeah.
I like that. It was
also,
a good one.
He evaded the question from the moderator, what will you replace Obamacare with? And then he just started asking Harris if she'll pack the courts, and neither Harris nor the moderator asked him to go back and answer the question. Which makes me think, that's why when I hear people talk about, well, Kamala was a prosecutor, she's a really good debater, and she's so smart and tough. No, she's not. She's neither of those things. Anyone with half a brain would have picked up on the fact that Pence did not want to talk about his healthcare plan. So, That's where you should have hit, and hit hard. Just keep bringing up over and over that he has no healthcare plan, because the Republicans do not have one. Make that obvious over and over. I would have pointed that out so many times people would have gotten pissed off at me for being repetitive.
That, and they're uncomfortable with the environment question. And I will say the healthcare one, I would guess beyond like time limits, I guess one reason why she didn't one of the reasons that she didn't really hit him on that was Pence can just come back with Obamacare, and Obamacare's popularity, it's pretty low right now. It's a failing system, and that doesn't mean that we need to go the Trump way, which would be let's get rid of it and have nothing, because that'd be even worse, right?
Yeah.
But it kind of goes to the heart of the matter. Neither one of these candidates have a serious solution for that problem.
True.
I will say this. I would say that if Pence had one that was really good, it was, the Biden, like this is Biden's plan to deal with COVID. And then Pence is like, well, I feel like you just plagiarized what we have on our website. And I'm like, yeah, he's kind of right about that. Because I looked at the Biden thing for that, and I was like, all right, this is just vague stuff. Like, we need more testing. I'm like, all right, yeah, sure. I mean, I know this. It just, you know what I mean? Just very, very vague overall on that one. But that's the whole thing with Biden anyways. I ask people, like, what's he running on beyond, Trump sucks?
In many ways,
he got anything else?
Yeah, in many ways, I'm surprised Biden's doing as well as he is in the overall race, because he's more or less replicating Kerry's 2004 strategy, which was abysmal. I will be the same as candidate X, but I will be better.
I don't know if he's replicating that one as much. It kind of feels a bit more like Hillary Clinton without the whole, I'm going to bust the glass ceiling deal going on,
Yeah, come on, man.
Come on, man.
Listen, Fat. Don't make me wrap this chain around your head, Jack.
Wait, was that a reference to Corn Pop?
Oh yeah, the great Corn Pop.
That was that awful. I like Frontline usually, but Frontline had an awful documentary about the election. It was terrible. Like, almost everybody interviewed was like anti-Trump. So I mean, the slant was heavy, right? But the one thing that I thought interesting was one of the top YouTube comments for it was, of all these interviews, who I really want to hear from is Corn Pop.
Oh yeah. I mean, I guess he's been dead for several years now, but
when can we talk to Corn? Nobody's interviewed this man ever. I mean, there's no newspaper interviews or something.
He died, I want to say around 2010 or 2012.
Do we? No, I mean, I'm being serious. Do we have any stuff before Corn Pop died? We could hear Corn Pop's side of the story.
I mean, I'm sure some of his friends are still around. Somebody should find one of his friends and ask about the Biden confrontation.
Or did he? How can I say this? Did he? Or did he just only tell the story after he was dead? That's convenient.
Well, there were people who said that it was true. I don't know how they confirmed it. The other thing, I guess, now that I'm thinking about it, if you think about Corn Pop's life, he's a poor black guy. He and all his friends are probably dead by now. Sadly, very few black dudes live to be in their 70s. At least if you're poor. So there might not be any other witnesses other than Biden. And I bet the maintenance guy was older. He's probably dead. So.
Oh, yeah. This is too bad, man. I really want to get Corn Pop's point of view.
Yeah, now imagine that the conversation, there's probably, that conversation with the pool guy was probably a little different than the way Biden reported it. He's probably like some old World War II veteran, and then he said, "Listen, boy, you gotta be tough around these darkies. I'm gonna give you a length of pull chain. You go out there, you wallop him in the head the way that I did to the Japs, and you don't come back unless you make him say Uncle Joe."
I see. Well, now we've had to get assured this video will be demonetized, right?
Well, I'm just putting us in the proper context of 1960s Delaware.
I'm sorry, you can't do that anymore. I mean, you can quote a historical document word for word and be in trouble. I was actually joking with somebody about that. The old 1950s war movie, The Dam Busters, about the British bombing attack. And, there's the name of the dog in the movie, which is a noted thing. And they say the name of the dog constantly in the movie. I'm like, if I just randomly showed this movie in class, like some World War II thing, let's say I hadn't watched it, I was just like, oh, here's a good World War II movie about airplanes. Let me put this on, right?
Yeah.
I mean, your career would be over.
So the name is that bad?
Oh yeah, check it out, man. And there's also the guy who wrote about the Dam Busters recently is James Holland, and he actually mentioned that people ask him questions about the dog's name all the time because we're just obsessed with race because we're reverting back to racialized thinking.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's my take on it.
So this debate. Let's see. The only thing I heard Kamala say that I found interesting is she plans to decriminalize weed, expunge the records of people who were arrested for weed, and supposedly end private prisons.
She did promise some good stuff here and there. No, I don't have much faith on delivery, Yeah.
Yeah, they also didn't really talk about economic issues. They didn't talk about poverty or class at all, which is not surprising.
That question is going to be avoided as much as possible. And the fact, sir, that you want to talk about it shows your limitations as a cis white male.
Oh, of course. Yeah. They did talk about how important it is to have Catholics be represented in America because apparently that is still a huge problem. So, Pence pointed out that Barrett is Catholic and has a bunch of kids, therefore she belongs in the court. And then Harris retorted with, well, Biden will only be the second practicing Catholic if elected president. So, who won the Catholic Identity Politics Olympics?
Pence. I mean, like most Catholics don't think Biden's a real Catholic. I mean, think about it. Biden was against abortion until the polls told him not to be.
Come on, man. Listen, Jack.
I mean, that's serious, Listen, Jack.
In Scranton, I went to Mass every Sunday. Father Delaney knew me by name, man.
Yeah, he got moved out of Scranton when he was 11,
People still know me in Scranton.
He's in Delaware, where they don't even have Delaware Punch. I mean, goddamn. The only thing in Delaware that anybody likes is Dogfish Head, right?
I don't know. I've never been to Delaware.
Dogfish Head's a great beer. All right.
It's okay.
So,
isn't it an IPA?
They do some IPAs. I'm not a big IPA person usually, but their 90-minute IPA, last time I had it, which was a few years ago, but it was superb.
Well, it is a good IPA. That being said, I'm not a big fan of IPAs. My favorite flavor is Irish Red.
Okay. I have to go with Porter or Stout.
Yeah, Porter is a close second for me.
Dark lagers are good. Amber is good. Amber can be very good.
Yes, it can.
I'm not as big on. Yeah, I'm not as big on the lighter beers. But I mean, except for a Pilsner, I've had a good version of anything. Like I'm not really that big on IPAs or sours, but I've had ones that are good, but not Pilsners. Pilsner's just terrible. Yeah. But yeah, I just kind of boring. This really isn't going to move. This is going to move the needle. When people, if a Democrat or Republican tells me that they think their person won, I can totally see why.
Yeah.
Like there won't be that moment where I'm like, hey, that doesn't make any damn sense at all. You're just wishing it was like that, right? You're just hoping.
A Trump person would say, well, Pence made the point that Trump repealed NAFTA, passed the USMCA. He said that we have to resist going too far on climate change because of jobs. And he also made the point that Trump was anti-white supremacist, so it's all you got to do. It's what people were looking to hear. We won overwhelmingly. And then a Harris person would say, she pointed out that Trump failed on certain things. She talked about a few different things Biden would do as president, including getting back on the Iran deal and re-entering the Paris Climate Accord. She defended the legacy of Obama, and that's really what people want to hear. Flawless victory, fatality.
Flawless victory. Wait, this wasn't a brutality or an animality?
No. I mean, whenever you're talking to a partisan hack, it's always whatever the best outcome is possible is.
Honestly, this. Oh God, what the best one though? Seriously, the 2000 vice presidential debate with Cheney Lieberman. That was a friendship.
Yeah, that was boring as shit.
God, that was seriously just them agreeing with each other. I think they started making jokes and laughing at each other's jokes. I mean, it was. Man, that election sucked.
Yeah, Lieberman, of all the Democrats in the Senate at the time, I think he might have been the most conservative. And when he initially got into the Senate in 1978, he ran a campaign distinctly and openly to the right of his Republican opponent. So, just to give you an indication of where he was on the spectrum. And that's why he and Cheney were basically BFFs in that debate.
Oh, he got endorsement and support from William F. Buckley when he ran for the Senate. He took out a liberal Republican. A very despised, I've got his name, but he was one of the last of the big liberal Republicans, and he was absolutely despised by Buckley, National Review, and Reagan. So there you have it. We got, and that's how you get Joe Lieberman. Honestly, one of the most universally despised people I know of.
Yeah. I remember when McCain wanted to put him on the ticket in 2008. He thought he was going to do a unity ticket to make up for the fact that the Republicans were in the political wilderness, and then the party said no. And that's why McCain got pissed off and went with Palin. So that is actually Lieberman's most salient claim to fame.
In part, too, I think also McCain was like, whatever, Palin will cause some excitement.
Yeah, it's like, well, I'm probably going to lose no matter what I do. Throw the Hail Mary, see what happens. Oh shit, that missed. As if it would have made a difference.
Honestly, I'm not even going to blame McCain for it. You're in a bad position, a really bad position.
Yeah, he was playing with house money, and the party also held his hand on a lot of issues. So that was the only thing he had freedom of action on, really.
Yeah, so you might as well just take a crack at it. That is worth noting too, because McCain was not the Republican Party's choice for 2008. It really was Romney.
Yeah, and then that was all wrecked by Huckabee. So you had Huckabee and Romney running to the right of McCain. So it was basically they each had about 30%. McCain had about 40%, and then he won with the moderate faction.
Yeah. The Huck.
Yeah, and Huckabee famously said, which still amazes me to this day, he famously said, quote, "I don't care about foreign policy. I only care about gay marriage and abortion."
Huck's gonna Huck, man.
Yeah.
Huck's gonna Huck.
So I was stunned that you could run for the presidency running on only two issues, both of which are pretty irrelevant. But, more power to him. He had a pretty strong showing. So,
yeah, I'd wonder what this makes me wonder somewhat what a Pence or Harris presidency would look like. I would feel that a Pence one would be like a kind of like, let's go back to George W. Bush, but with a few Trump ideas thrown in.
Agreed. Also, no infrastructure spending. I was in Indiana when Pence was governor, and the roads there were horrible, especially when it snowed. Like, he's the kind of guy who would not invest in extra salt. If they ran out of their limitation for that year, he's not going to order more. So you're just going to have to slide your way into a tree because he's not fixing the roads.
How do you think a Harris presidency is going to look or will look, if it happens?
A lot of posturing. She'll try to give speeches instead of doing action. There might be a little bit of action on a few social issues here or there, maybe a tad of criminal justice reform around the edges, and not much else. And of course, the media will eat it up because, oh, it's the first woman president and the first woman of color, and this is so historic. She just passed a bill. This is the most important thing that's ever happened in the history of this country. So she would just pass something extremely milquetoast and centrist, and people would act like it was the most brilliant thing any human has ever done. They'd be like, there was the invention of fire, the invention of the submarine, and Harris raising the minimum wage by $1. Those are the 3 great moments in human history, according to
the
CNN.
submarine, sir.
Yes, the submarine. I stole that. I stole that line from what's it called? Whatever the basketball movie with Will Ferrell was. Minor.
That one. It's like
Semi-pro.
70s basketball.
Yeah, semi-pro.
Yeah. Was that good?
I liked it, but then again, I mean, I like pretty much anything that's basketball related. So, it was kind of good fun. Actually, Will Ferrell had a little subgenre going for a while in the 2000s where he would make fun of some random-ass sport. So whether it was racing or figure skating or minor league basketball, he had 3 hits just on that basic concept of let's make fun of semi-pro athletes. And it actually worked pretty well for him.
Talladega Nights was good. I like that one.
Yeah, and Blades of Glory was the skating one.
Yeah. That had John Heder, the guy from Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah.
But no, man. It's and I guess it just kind of seems like a draw tonight, really.
I would have to agree. This one will not have an impact on the polls. I feel justified with my take on the previous presidential debate, however, where I said that Trump stabbed himself. The polls do reflect that, so I was correct about that. I just want to point that out.
What are the polls like then?
There was a movement against Trump by a few points in the polls after that debate when they had about a week to register it, and it seems like it was exactly from that debate.
Well, all he has to do is find the second debate, and everybody forget.
True.
I mean, Obama had a horrible first debate. George W. Bush had a horrible first debate against John Kerry. I mean, that's just you find the next one, it'll be okay.
My favorite thing was when all the pundits who had been in the Bush or Obama administration were talking about how presidents try to be too professional and too polished in their first debate, and they said, well, Trump might fall into that trap. It's a common trap. Do you know who you're talking about? Donald Trump isn't going to go out there and try to be the embodiment of dignity. What universe do you live in? That's something he would never do. But that was the prediction a lot of them were making before the debate. I remember I watched a little bit of Pod Save America, which was like going through torture. And that's what they were calling.
I knew he'd be aggressive. I will say that he really went probably a little further than even I thought. But why do you hate listening to Pod Save America so much?
Basically, all Pod Save America is a bunch of Obama alumni who toe the party line. They're the blue no matter who establishment Democrat types. And it's extremely boring. They never really talk about anything of substance. Anyway, it's just awful.
So what happens if Biden wins? Do they shut down their operations? I mean, America's saved, right? At that point.
I guess it depends on whether or not they get into the Biden administration. If the main host and the sort of secondary people that go on there get jobs, they probably close it down. However, if they don't get jobs, they probably just keep going. They're probably making a lot of money off of it because, let's face it, that is one of the biggest podcasts in America right now, unfortunately. If I were them, I'd just keep doing it. I don't see any reason not to. They're making money, and they're getting paid just to repeat party talking points. So,
sounds like a good gig, if you ask me.
Yeah, it's pretty brain neutral. You don't really have to do much. Just go on there and pretend that Obama was the second coming of Lincoln, and that Biden will restore dignity and empathy. It's a really damning statement on the health of this country when Biden's able to run such a vague-ass campaign on the premise that he has empathy, and no one ever follows up with, and how does that manifest itself in a material sense for people?
It doesn't. I mean, I don't know, man. I kind of look at these people. They're all weak and incompetent, and I believe with a weak and incompetent leadership, and you're entering a time of accelerating chaos. If history is to be any guide, we're going to get some Lord Humongous types out in here. We're going to get you're going to get your Genghis Khan types or something. I don't know. So, I mean, it's kind of like everybody will be excited the night Trump loses, Biden gets in there, and then about a month or 2 months after he's in the White House, nobody's going to give a shit. Republicans will have a sweeping midterm victory in 2022. Well, you get to see like what kind of person they put up, but I have no doubts that a Biden presidency is going to be essentially like a do-nothing presidency, except for identity politics. They'll do that hard because it doesn't affect the bottom line.
Yeah.
So,
and then they might use the 2022 ass-kicking as an excuse for switching horses midstream and putting Harris in the White House.
Oh, by the way, I do want to say, when I say identity politics, I don't mean some of this type that might be useful or even interesting. I mean like the woke capital type, the absolute bargain basement variety. The
right.
Bottom of the barrel, dumbest of the dumb, the lowest of the low.
Yeah, I seriously doubt they will end private prisons, which would actually be a positive accomplishment, but I don't see that happening. They might make a half-assed attempt at it and then abandon it midway. And then maybe they end cash bail.
No, they won't. Well,
wait, no, cash bail is basically for rich people. No, that's not ending. That's gonna stay.
Yeah, I mean, look, man. I mean, Biden for sure has not really for the anti-police crowd. I mean, Biden throws him a few platitudes, but his record and some of the stuff that he's proposing doesn't really suggest he's going to do much of anything on that front.
Harris kept talking about how they're going to ban certain holds, but how do you do that at a national level?
Well, everybody's got body cameras and stuff, but I mean that's how you enforce it, I would guess. I mean, how you do it on a national level, I don't know, but one could make a case that federalism and state power has been eroding for a while, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think you're just gonna. I don't know. Sorry, just. I think it's the other problem too that the people, if we're talking about a problem the left has, it's that they have about 20 different priorities and they kind of shift from one to the other depending on what the big thing of the moment is, right? So back when Greta Thunberg was being thrown in our faces, it was all about this. Like, look at this brave woman talking about the future of the earth and it's going to be terrible. I'm like, this is right. The future is going to be terrible. I think you can find a better salesman. And I don't have any idea why why she is like person of the year, and nobody even remembers her right now. Like that's one of those embarrassing things, right? Like when people think, exactly, like when you got to tell you about how much people talked about Princess Diana when she died. Princess Diana did nothing. Princess Diana did nothing. She was a pointless person. She is not an important person, but because she was a big media figure, I mean. Hell, they had some thing where they actually put on a list of like 100 most important people of the last millennia. And I was like, what in the hell are you talking about? She's not even the top 100,000.
I guess the whole significance of Diana is that she was supposed to be the approachable royal who exposed the fact that they're just humans and they have family drama and personal problems just like anybody else. If that's her significance, that falls well under the category of what I like to call WTF gas. Who the fuck gives a shit?
Dude, that was that movie. Oh, that was that movie, Amelie. Pretty good movie.
Yeah.
And everybody's talking about Princess Diana, and the guy who's like the French painter type is like, essentially says like, shut up, stop talking about her. What about Renoir? And because he's a big Renoir fan. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Fuck Princess Diana. Let's talk about Renoir. Renoir is an important historical figure and an artist, right?
Yeah.
Princess Diana is somebody important for the 90s.
One thing that I see in my notes here, I forgot to say earlier. One thing Pence did that was better than what Trump did earlier is he didn't use the word radical 80,000 times. He only used it a few times, and he used it specifically... Well, the one time he used it was actually really stupid. He accused Biden and Harris of being radical environmentalists.
Yeah, that one, I know what they're doing there, though. They're trying to hip on the fact that they're talking out of both sides of their mouths on the environment. And I'm not saying the blow landed particularly well from Pence or Trump, but it is something worth hitting them on. You know, you'd have to do it better than they were, but it is worth hitting them on because they are talking about both sides. They are talking out both sides of their mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, hell, I mean, I don't know. Anybody in the chat, can you tell me what Biden's, like, his fucking, like, number one goal is going to be when he's president? I'm sorry, or Harris? Like, what's like the most important
empathy and dignity.
They're not going to restore dignity. Harris is not dignified looking. She is not going to look great on the world stage. Those world leaders are going to rip her to pieces. They're going to rip Biden to pieces.
When Biden pisses himself or forgets where he is, and then Harris is sitting there doing the neoliberal whinette thing and making bad jokes that aren't funny.
No, man, we're getting Lord Humongous, though. Eventually, one way or the other.
Yeah,
and hell, I'd follow the Humongous man. You know, he's the warrior of the waste, the Ayatollah of rock and rolla. You know.
Okay, so we actually, you want to move into some of the chats?
Yeah, sure. We got a super chat or whatnot? What we got?
One from Guy. He asked, "Bro, what did I even watch tonight? Why does this country suck so bad now? Is it like they aren't even trying anymore?"
I love it. We got 3 questions here, and thank you, Guy. I'm sorry, Guy. So, bro, what did we even watch tonight?
Boring. We watched an exchange of talking points between 2 extremely mediocre people who were put on the bottom of tickets led by senile old men. I mean, maybe that's a bit literal of a description, but I don't think it's inaccurate.
I think we just watched a draw, like a World War I battle or something. You know, like one of those like ones like the Somme where nobody really feels like they win, right?
Exactly.
But I guess not like the Somme, because the Somme had like bloodshed and drama. You know, this was this not much happened. So that's what we did watch tonight. But why does this country suck so bad now? Ooh, man, that's a dollop, right?
I would say the rise of neoliberalism and the general influx of money into politics. It has frozen out all meaningful debate on issues that affect real people.
Yeah, it also guarantees that in a country that is a country that will become a country that is economically unequal, while at the same time becoming rapidly diverse, is a recipe for social strife. You know, so unless we're going to make it to where people feel like they have an equal stake in the society, they feel like they can get ahead, and they all want to be part of this culture and stuff, then it's not going to work out. And I mentioned the culture thing because, you know, it's really like, I mean, how much pride can you have in America when we just keep losing? I mean, we've been doing nothing but losing for 20 years, just constant losing.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, Trump's not much of a winner, but that's why that "Make America Great Again" thing made sense. Because I mean, some people, Hillary, are like, we're already great. I'm like, no, we're not. We're fucking failing. We're a failing nation right now. You know, so I know somebody asked me today. It's like, are we in like talking about decline? And I was like, I think America's been in decline since 1968. Honestly,
yeah.
I mean, that was the year that we, you know, the assassinations of Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr. You had the Democratic, the violence of the Democratic Convention, and most importantly, you had the Tet Offensive, which proved that we were not going to be winning Vietnam, that the Vietnamese were much stronger than we thought they were. Now, of course, we militarily won, but that wasn't the point. Americans were not going to be in for the long haul in Vietnam. That's why it was bound to fail. You have to know what your people are willing to do in a war.
And
go
ahead.
Oh, by the way, that was also the first year where our economy started to show the cracks that have only accelerated since then. So, yeah, I've been living in a nation in decline the whole time. We just had that little Cold War bump afterwards. But what I say to the Cold War is we didn't win. The Soviets just lost first.
I am inclined to agree. And the last part of Ungai's question, is it like they aren't even trying anymore? Well, the thing is, I believe they are trying, but not for you and me. They're trying for rich people, the people who give them their funds. And they're doing a damn fine job of keeping the rich rich. But if you're asking if they're trying to make life better, if they're trying to improve the American experience, if they're trying to maintain democracy or enhance it in some way, the answer is no. They're not trying that.
They're most certainly not trying that. But, I mean, why would you? Right? I mean, you can try that and maybe you'll get elected. But the other way, you get lots of money, and that's where all your friends are, too. I mean, getting elected by the people is great and all, but you're not going to be hanging out with them, are you? You're going to be hanging out with the guys who you went to Ivy League with, so one of the Ivy Leagues with. So, of course, you're going to try for them.
Yep.
No, you're in a nice oligarchy. They are trying. I think what the problem is, though, is that the level of competence just isn't there, and nor is the faith. Right? Like there's nobody can give a Reagan or even an Obama, 2008 like speech about America's soaring possibilities right now. When they do, it's just a hollow joke.
Yeah. Also, De Profundis Historia says Joe Biden is a cancer to the Republic. Let's not demean cancer so harshly, okay? By comparing it to Joe Lieberman. I mean, cancer sucks, but is it really that
Cancer
bad?
does suck, man. I see one right here, Michael Klein.
Okay.
Why is everyone begging the feds to reform the police? Aren't the police controlled by the local governments? To my knowledge, that is correct.
Yes.
I do believe they can. I do believe, however, they can influence things through some types of funding and resource allocation, maybe, but I'm not an expert on that, honestly. I will say that the question about why is everyone begging the feds to reform the police is interesting because, for instance, it's that kind of thing when people are like, okay, we're going to reform the police, let the FBI do it. I'm like, you trust those people? Kind of like when Harris was talking about, we're talking about Trump, who trusts Vladimir Putin over our intelligence community. I'm like, I wouldn't trust either one of them. They both have records, and they both have records as liars. So, yeah, people are like, Trump doesn't trust the intelligence community. I'm like, good. Now, I wouldn't be trusting Putin either.
Right. I mean, Putin, by the way, also was a part of the intelligence community for much of his career with the KGB and its successor agency, but
I believe a spy in East Germany, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, I think technically he was an attaché to an embassy, but basically a spy. Anyway, yeah, so I think that Michael's question is right in the sense that, yes, all police departments are controlled locally. That being said, clearly local protests have not gotten the nation anywhere. And a lot of these problems are more widespread. Not to mention that police often train with departments across the country. So it is very much a national issue. And I think that that's why people have tried to bring it into the national spotlight. Also, there is no such thing as local media anymore, at least not in a meaningful sense. So if you really want to get attention for your issue, you pretty much have to go national at this point. Local journalism is deader than disco.
Yeah, thanks to the Pulp Fiction line, No, it's yeah, the local stuff's pretty dead. And in many ways, it really is a local issue. I mean, the way a police department is seen or operates in New Orleans as opposed to Philadelphia are quite different from what I've seen and read, right?
Right.
So in many ways, it is personal. I mean, people talk about the police being militarized. I can assure you, here in New Orleans, that did not happen. The police are not militarized around here.
Well, that's good.
I'm not saying, but we may not have. We just don't have like the problems that other places have with policing right now. We did in the '90s, although of a slightly different variety than what you might be thinking. But yeah, so it is in many ways a local issue, but we think of everything nationally. There is a tendency on the left to look more to the national government to solve things, which meant that a lot of things on the local level were ignored by Democrats for a while, and that's why ALEC was able to get away with a lot. You know, the group is essentially like writing legislation, and of course, when we say writing legislation, I mean stuff like right to work laws and things, which are all over the place, and nobody talks about that kind of stuff. But if you really want to like ease some of the tensions in America, it might be good to have people with decent jobs who can have pride and dignity in their work, and not feel that they're just like expendable serfs to be tossed around.
Yeah, let's not get radical, Sean. Anyway, so Levant made a great point, or Levant. The problem is that the Democratic leadership responded to the ugly and clownish sides of Trump by becoming uglier and more clownish.
There is some truth in that, I think. They did respond essentially by becoming an extremely petty party. You had people telling me about how horrible, misbehaved Trump is, and then they were clapping for Maxine Waters. I'm like, she's a joke. She's a clown. Her and Trump should get to our show together, honestly. Yeah. Be a good Punch and Judy routine, right?
Right.
But anyway, I see a super chat from Levant. It says, proverb, the fish starts to rot at the head. Quite true.
Yes. I think that's correct. And the head of both parties is quite rotten. So it should come as no surprise that the country's falling apart. Also, just because it can never be said enough, the two-party system sucks and must go.
Yeah, you got to do some laws for that, though. And I was doing some of that research on for the big presidential video we're going to do in a few weeks, and I was noticing how riotous the parties were in the first few decades. Right? Third parties would actually come around quite a bit and actually get decent traction. People within the party would openly oppose each other. Our parties today are, for the most part, rather disciplined.
Yeah. No, they are. Also, I think in principle, anything that in any way gives either party or both parties more institutional power is an inherently bad thing.
Yeah.
Actually, I was watching the People's Convention the other day. I still need to upload a Spirit of Thersites video on People's Convention. Jesse Ventura made a good point. He said that John Adams once said that whenever the political parties take over the instruments of government, that the republic is dead.
Huh. I would trust that. John Adams is, except maybe Thomas Jefferson, he's the best read of the founders that I know of. Except maybe Jefferson. I mean, There might be another more minor one like Wilson or Dickinson, but Adams had a massive library, rivaled only by Jefferson's library in terms of the scope of it. So, yeah, I'll defer to John Adams on that and a lot of stuff.
Yeah, no, Adams was a smart guy. I don't agree with a whole lot of his policies, but at least he did have some basis for his beliefs. One person had a pretty good comment here before we move on to the next super chat. Reagan opened up hunting season on unions with the FAA firings. Business seeks to replace the role of government to innovate and price tag every solution. We need 5G toasters soon, according to Silicon Valley.
5G toasters. That's awesome.
Yeah. All right. Next super chat is from Brick Dictator. He addresses his comment directly to Michael Klein, and he says that James Garfield could save the Republic. So Michael Klein, James Garfield could save the Republic. And only James Garfield.
What do you think of James? Do you think James Garfield could save the Republic?
I don't know much about him, actually. I know he was president in the 1880s, but beyond that, I won't pretend that I know all that much about his presidency.
I mean, a few things that I do know. Very handsome as a young man, had beautiful piercing eyes. Appears that he probably had his share of affairs. Civil War general, mostly known for being chief of staff to General William Rosecrans. There's debatable that he backstabbed Rosecrans. He was a radical Republican. Opposed to Grant, though, and made sure that Grant was not nominated for a third term. That's a fun one to keep in mind. People are like, Grant was really humble. I'm like, yeah, he was so humble, he wanted to outdo Washington and get a third term. You know, he also, by the way, I believe at one point Grant wanted to have a higher rank than George Washington. So there's humility for you. Yeah, dude, this whole thing with people like Lee and Grant were humble, I'm always like, that is a load of bullshit. Those are two very proud men who know how to pretend to be humble.
Yeah, it's the art of appearing to be something that's positive while actually being the antithesis of that thing.
Yeah.
Of knowing you have a fault and concealing it artfully.
But Garfield prevented Grant from getting the nomination for a third term.
Yes.
And then promptly died in 4 months. I don't know. Garfield was honestly probably one of the 10 or 12 smartest men ever elected president. In terms of raw intelligence, I'd put him up there with like Jefferson, Adams, Madison, Lincoln, Nixon. I do think post-Carter, we've not really nominated the smartest people typically. Not that they're a bunch of dummies, right? But I don't know.
I mean, Bill Clinton and Obama are both intellectually accomplished. It's just that they're not on the same par with someone like a Jefferson or a Madison.
Yeah, especially Bill Clinton. I mean, Bill Clinton's clever, right? But I'd call him clever.
Sean, I have to dispute that point. I was one of the smarter presidents we've had. Now, I don't like to brag, but I'll give you 3 reasons why I was one of the greatest presidents ever and also one of the smartest. Number 1, you only know about a number of affairs I had. You don't know the total number. But let me just assure you, I got way more pussy than JFK. Number 2, I did more to advance Middle East peace than any previous president, or at least I did it televised. A lot of other presidents didn't think to do their negotiations on television. And number 3, I married Hillary, and she hasn't succeeded in murdering me yet. So, you need to take those facts to the bank, put them in your pipe and smoke them the next time you try to rank the intellects of the American presidents, my good sir.
Well, I did see that episode of where Roger Ebert had Bill Clinton on, and they talked about movies, and Bill Clinton's taste in movies wasn't too bad.
Oh. He also said that if he had lived in the past, he might have tried to ride with Genghis Khan.
That's the best thing he's ever said then.
Yeah. I mean, Bill Clinton, not a dummy. I wouldn't say he's an intellectual juggernaut, but he's not George W. Bush either, so.
I think that tells you where Bill's priorities lay, though, if he wants to be with, he wants to ride with the Khan, with the great Khan.
My priorities lie in bed.
All right.
Yeah, no, God damn it, man. No, it's like, that's interesting. That's interesting one to say. As for Garfield, he wasn't in office long enough. So remember, we get our presidential rankings. I didn't want to rank him because he was only in office like 4 or 5 months, really. I I'm inclined to think he would have been a good president, though. I'm inclined to think he would have been a good president. And while Garfield could be a little shifty, I mean, isn't every politician? He did have genuine convictions. So I generally like Garfield. I've actually got in my Civil War shelf his letters collection, which is called The Wildlife of the Army. It's pretty good. He's a pretty good letter writer.
Yep. Levant donated $2, and he said, "Joe Biden, just be thankful I'm not Mike Bloomberg." That is actually one of the better things you could say about Joe Biden, to be fair.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That is definitively one of the better things to say about Joe Biden.
Because honestly, I can only think of a handful of candidates who would have been worse nominees than Biden in terms of not only running for president, but being president. And Bloomberg and Buttigieg are the only two who I would describe as definitively worse, at least in terms of if they had gotten into office.
Well, my choice for worst ever.
Gillibrand.
There we go.
I would say she's more of a tie than definitively worse, but I don't know.
I vote for Joe Biden every day over Gillibrand. I'd vote for everybody over Gillibrand.
Yeah.
Except maybe George W. Bush? I don't know.
I would definitely vote for Gillibrand over George W. Bush. That would not be hard as a choice.
And Michael Klein says, and thank you, Michael Klein, for the $2. 3 keys to victory: America, Jesus, freedom. That does sound like the Mike Pence line, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that was sort of what what Mike Klein... Well, okay, no, Mike Pence is Jesus. Sorry, Mike Klein. Mike Pence is Jesus, let's be honest. Jesus comes from Indiana.
He didn't bring up Jesus too often. I mean, they did do some religious stuff there, but he was kind of holding back on that one.
Right. He did. He sort of implied it. I think that he knows that outright evangelism at this point is not super popular.
No, but he still has to. What he did do though. This is going for Mike Pence. When he mentioned the thing with Harris about people's religion being questioned for their suitability for the Supreme Court, that is right now a very sensitive issue with Christians.
Yeah.
Is that they feel that, and I think there's a lot of truth in it too, that the country's become so much less religious and that the views of religion have become more negative post George W. Bush. And that, by the way, is an important one because a lot of people, they'll blame it on like the atheists, be like, oh, it's because of Hitchens and Sam Harris. I'm like, no, it's because you guys hitched your wagon to George W. Bush.
Yeah. Ken Cook says,
was fatal.
Ken Cook says, the Republic is dead. Bring on Bonaparte. Thank you, Mr. Cook.
Thank you, Cook. And all I can say is here.
Yeah, I just I don't know who the Bonaparte-esque figure would be, but as long as he knows how to keep the streets lit, I guess.
Look, for a failing republic, you're lucky if you get Napoleon or Augustus. I mean, other failing republics get like, Hitler.
True. I mean, no, and despite what the British say, Napoleon and Hitler are very different. Napoleon is clearly preferable to Hitler.
Well, I do want to go back to Michael Klein's thing real quick. I did want to say this about the religion thing. We were talking about the fact the religious feel that now that they're becoming more of an out group, that people, like let's say you are trying to work your way through a certain profession, the fact that you are religious can be held against you. When Christians tell me that they're afraid of that, or I read about that, I'm like, I do understand that fear. I do see that playing out. I mean, there are a lot more people I know who, when you mention that maybe you believe in God, they're gonna look at you cross-eyed, right? Mm-hmm. I've always been more neutral about religion myself because I think everybody's religious. It just depends on what you want to be religious about. But I will say that Pence played the religion part pretty well. But yes, the Republic is dead. Bring on Bonaparte. But question, Thersites, would you prefer Bonaparte or Augustus? What do you prefer?
Augustus. Augustus was much more orderly. Bonaparte was a little too ambitious.
Yes, I know what you're saying, and I would want to agree with you, but I'm going to go with Bonaparte.
Okay.
The art's better. The entertainment is over the top.
That was considered the Silver Age of Latin, so it was one of the greatest periods of Latin literature and art, actually, under Augustus.
Well, I'm not saying Augustus didn't have a bad I'm not saying Augustus had a bad artistic period. I mean, that's the period of Virgil.
Yeah, Virgil, well, not Tacitus quite yet, but Livy.
Yes, Livy. Yeah, Livy.
Well, Catullus was a little bit before that, so he was a contemporary of Cicero. But basically, the Golden Age and Silver Age were back to back. So I guess to be fair, one can't really say that Augustus spurred great art. He more or less inherited it.
Yeah. Oh God, I think in the I, Claudius TV show, Claudius meets Livy, and they have a discussion about farts. But no, I prefer the Napoleonic style, man. The paintings, music, the grandiose pretensions.
Yeah, somebody said Hamilton was the American Napoleon. I have to disagree. I think if anything, Aaron Burr was the failed American Napoleon.
No, Aaron Burr is more like a failed Sertorius.
Yeah, but a really failed Sertorius, not
like I mean,
not a
Sertorius
respectable
lost
failed
too.
Sertorius.
Yeah. God, what would Hamilton have been? Well, I don't know. Hamilton definitely did not want us to be a democracy. Wanted us to essentially be a monarchy or a kind of benevolent. I don't know if I'd say benevolent dictatorship necessarily.
Joseph Stalin said MacArthur could have been the American Napoleon.
No way.
Well,
No.
except without the military skill. I mean, he had the experience, just not the talent.
Also, like Napoleon had like a lot. Napoleon had a very expanded circle of officers. MacArthur's is actually relatively small, the number of officers who supported him, and the number who opposed him, quite a few outside of that. Also, I'm not saying MacArthur didn't have charisma, but he didn't have Napoleon charisma. And he definitely didn't have Napoleon's intelligence, skill, record.
He didn't have Davout, he didn't have Ney, he didn't have Marat.
No, God, no. He didn't have Massena, he didn't have Saint Cyr. Shit, man. I mean, MacArthur just had a bunch of McDonald's underneath him.
Yep. Although I do like that MacArthur dramatically said, "I shall return."
Derek, we old soldiers don't die; we just fade away.
Actually, that's a pretty good line, though. I'm not
that
a big
one?
MacArthur fan, but I do have to give him credit for two things. One is that line, and two is preventing Japan from starving and possibly devolving into an insurrection. So those were his two things in life that he accomplished.
His rule over Japan was quite effective. That is true, most certainly. But yeah, no, I think. But I just wonder. I don't think we produce like an effective leadership class anymore. I think that's why I keep thinking of guys like Genghis Khan or the Lord Humongous, because I don't really see your next great powerful American leader coming from like Harvard or some shit. I think they just produce cookie cutter crap. Honestly, people all think the same, and they're all friends with each other, and they would prosecute each other because they're like, I couldn't prosecute him. We did cocaine together or whatever. So they're not going to do it. It has to be an outside force, something they don't see coming.
Yeah, which is why I'd like to announce my candidacy for emperor.
Yeah.
as your dictator, I will mostly rule for my own benefit, obviously, but I will throw you a bone. And I will have an extraordinary court life, which is openly corrupt.
I have to say,
it's not.
Your candidacy reminds me of the presidential part of the Ghetto Boys song, Damn It Feels Good to Be a Gangsta. So,
Yeah. No, and
Sounds good, man.
yeah, that'll be. It'll just be like a lot of gangster rap and unnecessary bling and just basic degeneracy. So.
Basic degeneracy. Well, I agree with you that the emperor, whose name I always mispronounce, Elagabalus, is definitely S tier. Elagabalus is S tier. All right. His mission was to appease the sun god or something, right?
Yeah.
Through was it sex and other debaucheries, and he achieved it. So I agree.
Yeah.
Elagabalus is an S tier emperor.
Yeah, so there you go. I mean, I think Elagabalus, one of the unsung heroes of history, he was doing what he needed to do to appease the gods. He took it in every orifice, gave it in every orifice, and ultimately he was persecuted for his religion. So he's, as somebody says, he's an X-tier emperor. So,
as in excellent.
Yeah, excellent and X-rated. So. And somebody else says that Hunter Biden could be the Elagabalus of our times.
Oh,
he's a little. Hunter's more of a guy who's intense and does drugs, but I don't necessarily think he's the degenerate in the classical sense. Michael Klein asked a good question for you, though. Was money in politics a problem during the 19th century? And yes, we understand Elagabalus sucked, guys. It's a joke that he's S tier. I feel like I shouldn't have to explain that, but. Just so you know.
Well, you gotta have a soft spot for somebody on the rough end, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, was money in politics a problem during the 19th century? Yes, almost in the very beginning. I mean, if we consider that only a property owner can vote. Now, keep this in mind too. We say that. Understand, property ownership was much more broad in the 1800s than we think of.
Right.
A lot of Americans owned a piece of land. So as far as the number of people who could vote, America in the early 1800s, more people can vote in America than pretty much anywhere else in the world that I know of. Definitely more than anywhere in Europe. So, and very, very soon you start having universal male suffrage anyway. However, the men who are being put up typically come from some kind of wealth, multi-generational wealth. And pre-Civil War, a variety of them are plantation and slave owners. So who would that be? Say Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, James Monroe, Andrew Jackson, even though Jackson did not come from wealth, but he was a plantation owner by the time he got in. John Tyler, James Polk. So, the thing is that I feel that one thing that people thought in the Civil War in the North was that if they could beat the South, they would get rid of the aristocracy, this kind of faux aristocracy that we had. And they did get rid of it, but it very quickly got replaced by robber barons very quickly afterwards. And I do think that led to some of the post-Civil War cynicism. And when I say cynicism, I don't necessarily mean that people didn't believe in anything or whatnot, but there definitely was a cynical undercurrent in the post-Reconstruction Gilded Age period. And in the Gilded Age, you do start to get your corporate presidents. And I would say your first corporate president was Ulysses S. Grant. And honestly, just about every president was after him. Now, they weren't as fully owned by corporations. If anything, I'd probably say Grant was more than most. And the reason for that is their corruption was based less on being bought off by corporations at that point and more by raw machine politics. And so some of your first moves towards progressivism happen on the local level in the Gilded Age by very corrupt party bosses, but it's because they know that's what the bulk of their constituents want. Keep in mind, this is also an era when your electorate has a voter participation rate of 70 to 90%, which we haven't had in over 100 years. The highest in my lifetime was Obama of like 60% for a presidential election. I mean, hell, when Clinton beat Dole, it was like 49%. So I would say on the local level, the politicians of the Gilded Age are more responsive to people's needs than you would think. And that's North and South. Fun fact about the South. The South is actually, post-Reconstruction, for all of its bad points, is one of the pioneers of business regulation. In particular, railroads. Not everywhere, of course. In Georgia, in particular, your Gilded Age politicians really were pretty damn corrupt. But like, say, in Texas, you had Reagan, who was the postmaster general to Jefferson Davis. And I think they removed a bunch of stuff to him recently, which is really sad because he was a very, very good, very, very effective Texas politician post-Civil War and did a lot of good things for Texas. But, he fought for the Confederacy, so you're damned forever, right? But he's actually one of the first people to write serious business regulation. So anyway. Also, he wrote some good... What's up?
Anybody hear Waffles purring? My cat is trying to be lovable right now. And there's a possibility that she destroys the stream by messing with the computer. I'm trying to keep her off it, but we'll see. Anyway, continue.
No, I'm pretty much done, although somebody commented here that John Tyler's last living grandson just died.
Well, that sucks. Also, the last survivor of the USS Indianapolis died as well this year.
The last survivor, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, so somebody said American workers have nothing but lost ground have nothing but ground to lose in international competition, the pay gap, wealth gap, etc. I think we've already seen that play out to a large extent, so that has been happening for a while now.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like we're... let's think about those 80s visions of the future, like Escape from New York, RoboCop, The Road Warrior. And I feel like we're leaving the Escape from New York phase and going to the Road Warrior phase.
Yeah. So, USS Liberty, do you have any comments on that?
Do they mean the incident that happened off the coast of Israel during the Six-Day War, I believe?
I don't know. Also, Michael Klein wanted you to know that he loved Dead Presidents. He
thanks, man.
Recommendation, so.
No, thank you. It's been a little while since I've seen it too. I need to rewatch it. Thanks, man. Glad you still dig it. Glad it's holding up, man. Keith David's amazing. He has a great soundtrack too. I mean, they have that awesome Sly and the Family Stone song in there. I gotta look that up though. I forgot the name of the song. All right, man. You have any more comments for the about the presidential debate? I mean, the vice presidential debate. About the current vice president and the hoped for one.
Let's see. Kamala talked about her record as Attorney General. She mentioned instituting body cameras and talked about training on implied bias or implicit bias. I don't know if that's a positive or a negative. I mean, I think body cameras are a good idea. I don't know how it polls. I know the implicit bias training, I don't get the feeling that's very popular, although it might be a good idea. Also, thank you, Seth Becker, for the donation. There was no comment, but we appreciate the donation nonetheless.
Hey, Seth, if you do want to have a question or a comment, right. I'll be on the lookout for it, and I'll shout out to it. All right.
All right. Also, good night, Michael. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Yeah. No, that's the Sly and the Family Stone song was "If You Want Me to Stay." Great song. But anyway.
Oh, so Seth says that we're the only people he gives money to online. Nice.
Dude, thanks, Seth. Yeah. Thank you.
Cool.
But no, it's I don't know. You going to watch the next debate then?
Yeah. Also, for anyone who thought, oh, well, we'll be spared a second or third presidential debate because Trump got COVID. No, we won't. There's no way. We're not that
He's
lucky.
got to prove that he can keep going, man. He's got to prove that it's enough. He's got to prove it's a nothing virus, and he's got to keep moving. That's what he's got to prove.
Worst case, what'll happen is they might move the date back by a day or two. Or one of them has to broadcast remotely. But that debate will not be canceled. There's no way. Because Trump, after the first debate, will be looking to get some measure of redemption and at least have a performance that is semi-whatever. Also, Seth does have a question. He just wanted to know our general thoughts on the debate. So,
what's up?
Seth just wanted us to summarize our general thoughts on the debate. I think he said he was late to the debate. Or to the stream, I mean. So my thoughts are that both candidates were kind of evasive on important questions, and it was not really a clear victory one way or the other. I don't think this one moves the needle. What do you think?
Generally so. I think Pence was more evasive, although I think that while both candidates landed blows in each other, I felt that Pence landed some better blows, I guess you would say. Pence was boring, but also well put together, which, looks, pretty good when you watch the last debate, I guess. Harris could be a little jittery or frazzled at times, but overall she didn't do poorly. She definitely did better than she did in the primary debates, and she did get in her share of blows as well. I think it's a true draw. And if a Republican or Democrat comes up to me and says, like, I think my guy won, I'll be like, yeah, probably. I mean, I can see why you'd think that.
Yeah,
this is not. It's not ridiculous to think that one person won when they clearly didn't. Kind of like those people I knew who, after the Tim Kaine Pence debate, were like, man, Kaine really showed him up. I'm like, nah, Pence kind of kicked his ass, actually.
So, also one thing that might be interesting, maybe we should revert to our old tier ranking system. What would you rate both candidates' performances if you had to use a letter grade?
A C for both of them? Maybe a D?
See, I think I would probably go with a D or maybe even an E for both of them. I thought it was pretty poor, but unspectacularly so. I was pretty bored by the debate, honestly.
I'll go with a D.
Yeah, I think D is probably about right. Looking back, at the time, I was feeling more of an E in the moment, though.
I did tune out. I literally tuned out at the end. I was like, "Fuck it, I want to watch Lord Humongous." All right.
Yeah. Although if we had to go back and rate the previous performances of Biden and Trump, I'd go with an E for Biden and a straight up fucking F for Trump.
I think that's what it is. That's what it is, man. I'm looking at these two, and they've got their slogans and their platitudes, which is my part I like the least.
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, this is fucking slogans and platitudes. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to watch Lord Humongous in Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior, and he's going to get to the heart of the matter. He's got charisma, he's got presence, and he's direct. All right? And, I'd vote for the Humongous over these two fuckers any day of the week. So I think that's why I went straight to that after the debate. I'm like, I'm just tired of watching these boring people put out these hollow slogans. Like, we all know the country's fucked, right? Like, you're all talking about public service. I'm like, don't give me that shit. You guys are here to make money, all right?
Yeah.
Public service, my ass.
Oh, absolutely. Levant had a question. Did you guys see Michelle Obama's endorsement yesterday? I did not. But I imagine it was condescending, voter-shamey, and cringy.
I don't have an opinion on that. I've always thought she had good physical style, but I also think that sometimes Democrats really overstate her charisma and appeal.
Definitely.
I do think the Republican conspiracy theory that she's actually a transsexual is hilarious.
Yeah, it's also I don't see it at all.
I don't see it either, but it cracks me up. It's become one of my favorite ridiculous conspiracy theories.
Yeah. I mean, I could see a case. There are certain people who have more stereotypical masculine features. Women, I mean. Michelle just doesn't have enough of them. It's just not. It's not a good match. I don't believe the idea that she was once a dude.
Well,
And
I
would
think
give
it
a
really
0
is.
out of 10 as a conspiracy theory in terms of plausibility.
Oh, in terms of plausibility, yeah. I think what it is, though, it's a counter to when you have the certain Democrats who are like, she's beautiful and well dressed and classy, and they're just like, she's a trans,
Yeah.
Like I think that's what it is, really,
Yeah.
But no, I don't know. I didn't see her endorsement. But the question makes me wonder: was it kind of like a Bill Clinton thing in a way? Because like when Bill Clinton has been known to give speeches about, say, like when somebody died and he has to give a eulogy, he'll just start talking about himself a lot.
Right.
So I'm just wondering if if it was an endorsement where it made it where you're kind of like, oh great, this person's running in 48 years.
I hope not. Let's see. What was her actual endorsement?
What's your problem with her, man?
And problem with Obama, Michelle? I just think that she's in many ways a worse version of her husband in terms of her presentation. I find her very condescending. She engages in a lot of voter shaming, and I just don't think there's a lot of substance there. So when I hear people talk about how great she is, I don't get it. I don't see it. So let's see. Vanity Fair covered her endorsement. Let's see what Michelle had to say.
Yeah, I think you want to do this one and then start to wrap it up.
Sure. My computer's being slow for some reason. Hopefully it's not the internet. Okay.
All right.
All right. Come on, computer, don't fuck with me again. You've already been enough of a pain in the ass for one evening, and you know it as well as I do. Alright, got a slow loading picture. It's 1998 again, so here's a slow rolling out picture of Michelle. So she already endorsed him at the convention. Why did she do another endorsement on Twitter? What was the point? We all know who she endorsed. Okay, there's nothing.
She endorsed Jesse Ventura.
That would be news.
Her response was
Jesse
just
because
why don't you do it? She just said, "Dude,
I want a candidate who will raise the tough questions like who actually killed JFK."
I want a candidate who was in Predator and The Running Man and No Holds Barred, Axis Guardian of the Universe.
Yes. Now the thing too about in retrospect that should have been a red flag. I remember seeing an Obama video going into the 2008 cycle, and he's talking about when he met Michelle. And he's talking about how he was immediately attracted to her. And he said that when he talked to her on the phone for the first time, she sounded very sexy, very corporate. Shit. It looks like we're having some stream difficulties here. Damn it. I don't know.
Yes, I remember. You remember you told me about that.
He's like, she's very sexy, very corporate.
Yes, you are sounding slow right now.
Okay.
What about me?
You sound fine to me. I don't know. I think it's my internet, though. God fucking damn it. I'm so sick of computer shit. And I guess we're pretty much done anyway, though. Am I even still streaming at this point?
Well, I do want to say, yeah. You sound fine right now.
Okay.
You're good, man. Although Dave Fundus Astoria has the great line, if a civil war does come, backing Generalissimo Humongous. I agree, sir. I would also support the Lord Humongous.
Well, personally,
Just
I
making
think
that clear,
I
all
will side with President Camacho. Fan of his work in the arena. And I think that he provides the kind of leadership that this country needs. He is the only person who can keep the House of representing. Shit. Did we lose everything? Hello? Fuck. God damn it. Okay, so we're still going. Sean isn't here? Where's Sean? Alright, I can't hear Sean anymore. So, guys, I guess let's just wrap this up. I don't know what the problem is. The internet's being shitty. I don't know about you, but I'm kind of tired. So
Yeah, it just cut out. Let's go and
all right.
Yeah, let's go and call it
just
quits,
end
man. You just cut out for like a minute with me, man. I didn't hear anything you said after.
Okay, I didn't hear
Camacho,
you either for
really.
a long time. So yeah, it's all right.
But I will say,
the internet is
it's a
telling
great
us,
choice.
and especially the ones that give super chats. Sorry about the internet. It sucks here. We have two options that are